Welcome back to another episode of the Align for Success podcast and live stream. I'm Deborah Deras, your hostess with the mostest, with a very special guest, as you can see, a beautiful sister, goddess, amiga, hermana de alma, somebody that every time when I see her brings a smile to my face. You are going to love today's show. And today, like every show, my intention is to bring to you mentors, people that inspire me by the way they're living their life, not for their outer success, but for their inner work that aligns them with their soul's purpose, with their soul's contract, with using their talent, skills, and abilities to do what they came here to do. Because I truly believe that success leaves clues. And that when we learn from other people's journeys, then hopefully you don't have to make the same mistakes I did or the same mistakes that my guest did. You can learn from our mistakes and be able to go on your journey with even more ease and with more grace. So I really am grateful for you being here each and every week. We are here to be able to provide you those success strategies, those resources, so that you can be connected to your life work in the world. And we want you to help us with this movement, to help us to spread this to the world. We have a saying here at Align for Success, and that is sharing is caring. So we invite you all to share this podcast out. Get it out to your communities. What would the world be like if everyone you knew was in alignment? They were on purpose. They didn't have a job, but they had a joy, something that they loved to go to because they were using their talents and skills to be of service in the world. That is what this is about. So please share. And by the way, you can get a reminder if you would like that we are live. Every week we come on Tuesday at 6:15 and guess what? You can text 1-844-920-1572. Keyword align. I'm going to say that again. I know it's a lot of numbers. 1-844-920-1572. Type in the keyword align and guess what? You'll be notified every time we go live, which is once a week. Join us, right? The other thing I want to let you know is not only are we with you here on Facebook, here on YouTube, here on LinkedIn, wherever you're watching, but we are also now on Apple Podcasts, now on Spotify, now on Google Podcasts. You can just search Align for Success TV, Align for Success TV. It's right on the screen and you can just follow. If you love the show, right, give us a 5-star review. That will help us get more people onto the movement of doing the inner work for the outer success. So, without any further ado, I would like to introduce my next guest. And she believes that may our choices honor both our wellness and the wellness of others to go from burnout to bliss. She is my hermana de alma, I like to call her. She is a psychotherapist, teacher, and author. We met through a networking organization and then would often bump into each other on the salsa dance floor. Oh, yeah, she's an awesome dancer. And her calling is to serve through inspiring and encouraging people in mining their strengths and to grow from their challenges. Her prayer is to serve exactly when someone needs it. And her program, Living Deliciously, is a multimedia program that helps people through their pain stories to heal, create joy, and find that deliciousness. Ooh la la, sabroso, right? Sounds great to me. Please help me welcome my amiga and yours, Mrs. Melissa Shepherd Williams.
Woo! Wow. What an introduction. Thank you so much, Deborah, for inviting me. I am thrilled. It's an honor to be here with you. Congratulations on all that you're doing to welcoming the world into alignment. I really
Ah, And congratulations to you because didn't you get married recently? Or it seems like it was recently.
Well, well, it's been now 6 years.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes,
wow.
we're
I don't know
approaching.
why I thought it was recent.
We're approaching 6 years. We're approaching.
Oh, oh,
Thank
congratulations.
you.
Wow. It's just, wow. It's so wonderful. All these years of knowing you to see you grow and expand, not only personally, but professionally. And, during the pandemic, I would go on Facebook and trust me, I had to like take a break sometimes from social media because there was a
Yes,
lot of negativity, but
a lot of it.
not from you, my friend, and not from me. I would go
Mm-mm.
to your page and I would just be like, "Oh, ooh, what is she doing? And what is she talking about?"
I
And
know.
I just love your way of being, your movement, how you are in the world. And
Oh,
we're going to talk about your podcast, but let's just reverse back. What got you into the field of becoming a psychotherapist?
oh, that is an interesting story. Growing up, I was so intrigued by the work of one of my aunts. Her name is Carmen. She's a psychiatrist. And so whenever she talked about her work, and also when she took me to the hospital or the clinic, her private practice, all of this was really intriguing to me. And I used to sneak some of her books and read some of her books. And I just became very interested in this process of helping others in this way. And I also remember how as a young girl, my friends would often um, confide in me, and as time went on, I realized, wow, this is a calling.
Hmm.
This is a calling. And then my mom is a teacher, and so much of what describes my mom is her community building. She was always involved in helping the community. So I really feel that in my family, I can name more people. In my family, there's such a love and a commitment to serving that it inspired me. That definitely is what motivated me.
That's so awesome to have those mentors and
Mhm.
influences. And I could see why your friends would come to you because you have such a peaceful, grounded energy, and you also have a compassionate, nurturing energy. So
Hmm.
I feel like if I would say something to you, that you would listen from an unconditional place. And it's so important that we have
Yes.
people in our life that can
Yes.
be that sounding board, especially. I don't know what your professional opinion is, but I feel like we all have a little bit of PTSD from the
Yes.
pandemic.
Yes. I mean, if you need an example of collective trauma, this is
Yeah,
it.
right.
This is it. Yes. I mean, in so many ways, the world was suffering before the pandemic. The pandemic added a layer to many people suffering, and it also um, placed a magnifying lens on things that have been needing attention for generations.
Right.
And in that process, old pain gets activated. So, yes, it's been a traumatic experience for all of us in many ways.
Yeah, it was
Mhm.
almost like 2020 put a magnifying glass on everything that wasn't working, from
Yes.
racism to
Hmm.
classism to the
Hmm.
economy to how people, even like how waiters or people that were working at supermarkets were underappreciated. These are the
Right.
frontline workers, yet they're getting paid minimum wage. That's ridiculous. Right? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
It's crazy.
everything. was just like
Craziness.
amplified. And in my
Hmm.
spiritual counseling work, they say it's revealed to be healed, but not
Hmm.
everybody has the healing tools. And I know your
Yes.
mantra is about going from burnout to bliss. And I mean,
Yes.
I wrote a book called Confessions of an Adrenaline Addict about my burnout experience. So when I heard that, I'm like, tell me more. Because
Tell
I'm
me more.
always learning, because
Hmm.
it's like being an addict. You're never truly healed. Like I could go back to that burnout cycle and have to really watch myself, make sure I don't work
Hmm.
evenings and
Hmm.
weekends and like have rest
Hmm.
time and downtime. How
Yeah.
do we go from burnout to bliss?
Oh, what a journey that is. And I have to tell you, Deborah, I was burnt out. Crispy
Crispy.
at one point. Crispy. Crispy. And for a number of reasons, I developed that experience of burnout. And you were talking about how you need to watch yourself so that you don't go back into that space. Woo, what an important point.
Hmm.
Because this healing thing is not linear.
No.
You can have a little bit of a cha-cha experience, where you move forward and then return to some of your old habits. And that's part of growing. It is part of growing. The thing, though, is as we are now more conscious of what led up to that situation, what the ingredients are in it, then one can be more observant. You can catch that which was not obvious before, and just start over and start over and start over. So so that, I think, that's what accounts for the cha-cha of growing.
Mm.
But thankfully consciousness helps us in that process. But what I'm learning about moving from burnout into a more peaceful space, is that it's with the body, because burnout is so much about disconnection from ourselves, from the world around us. And so, because the body carries every single uh, piece of evidence of our lives, then it's important that we attend to the body and reconnect with what the body tells us all day long about one moment to another. In that burnout season, we lose sight of that.
Right.
And so pausing becomes, I mean, really like water for soup, in order for us to reconnect with the body and listen to what it's saying. So many people are burnt out long before they realize it, because they
Right.
haven't been listening to the body.
Right. It's
The body,
insidious because when you're burnt
yeah.
out, you're going so fast that the little voice that's talking to you, it's sometimes
Hmm.
it's muted it or you're ignoring it like a little 3-year-old that says, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." And that's what your body's saying, "I'm tired. I want to rest." Right?
Right,
But you can't hear it.
right, right. I mean, the body messages all day long, and it turns into a scream in the
Right.
form of physical illness, trying to get our attention,
Yes.
trying to get our attention. I mean, Deborah, I was losing my hair.
Me too.
Yes, I was losing my hair, my immune system, no bueno, allergy symptoms all the time, that kind of thing, because the body is just trying to get one's attention, you know? And I feel that when you get to a point of being tired, boom,
Mm.
that's where the page starts turning.
Mm.
To me, that's where the
Yeah.
page starts turning. I call it fed upness.
Right. Right.
And it is an opportunity to re envision our lives, for sure. And beyond that point, there are many things to consider. Who's in my support circle?
Ooh.
So that in these pauses that may reveal deep seated pain, for example, I am supported while I'm learning to support myself through my inner world. You know, it takes time. It takes a village. It takes
It
a
really
village.
does. I
Yeah,
have to tell
healing
you that
healing can be done in isolation.
during the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, because I was living by myself and working by myself from home, like I could go months with no human contact except going to the grocery store, right? And I had to create a support network of like I think there was 3 no, 4 women and 2 men, 3,
Mm-hmm.
4 I had like 6 people that every day we would do like video chats. There's an app called Marco Polo and you could leave
Mm-hmm.
video chats and it kept me sane. And a few
Yeah.
of them were still checking in, maybe not every day like we did before, but
Right.
like every other day
Yeah.
because just to know that there's another person that knows what it's like for you during that
Mm-hmm.
day with so much unknown, just having that can keep you going and going and going, right?
Exactly.
I think people think that
Exactly.
they need to do it alone, especially people of color, right?
Mm-hmm.
That don't think, oh, keep it in the family, and you shouldn't bring it to other people. You should just like sin vergüenza.
Exactly. 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 I mean, healing ought not to be attempted in isolation. You know,
Say that again.
healing ought not to be attempted in isolation.
It's so good.
I mean, in our humanness, we need connection. So
Right.
this pandemic really compromised our ability to connect in the ways that just come naturally, and touch and all of that.
Right.
So we had to get so creative, like you did with Marco Polo, to figure out ways to stay connected. Now, when you think about how many people in the world don't have the technology, you
Mhm.
know, to connect in the ways that we found to be frequent, is like, you're on Zoom and StreamYard and all these things every day, all
Right.
day. Not everybody
Right.
has those resources.
Right.
So it's something to keep in mind. And not surprisingly, a lot of the people who don't have those resources are people in communities that have been marginalized, people of
Mhm.
color. And people of color have a history that really informs burnout.
Mm.
Like you were saying, we're not gonna. I don't need help. I need to be on survival mode. I don't have
Right.
time to ask anybody for help or let anybody try to offer me any kind. I got it, or we
Right.
deal with it here, between us. Keep it in here. Don't talk about it.
Right.
So talk about losing sight of what your body is saying because you're so busy surviving.
Right. And then you wonder why you can't get ahead because you're like literally like a hamster on a wheel in
Right.
survival mode
Right.
rather than in thriving mode. So
Exactly.
how
Mm-hmm.
can we, like you talked about consciousness, and I
Mm-hmm.
always say, thank God I'm awake, aware, and aligned. TGI.
Mm-hmm.
That's like our little phrase here. TGI.
Yes.
But
Uh-huh.
how can people that may not be conscious and aware of that little voice that has been turned on mute, how can they turn that on so that they can
Mm-hmm.
hear what their body needs, give their body
Mm-hmm.
what it needs? And my problem was and not feel guilty about it because I used to feel guilty if I would like want to take a nap. I'm like, trabajo doble. Don't be
Trabajo
lazy.
doble,
Just
triple,
yeah, yeah, triple.
right? And again, that goes back to those narratives that we've inherited, cultural narratives that say you cannot afford to stop, you cannot afford to pause because it's essential that you keep going to survive. These things are
Right,
embedded.
right,
And you might feel, and you talk about the guilt, you might feel like, who am I to question abuelita? Abuelita said this is how you get things done. Who am I
Right.
to question my mom? These
Right.
these things live in us. And so to pause, to give yourself permission to pause, let's start there. To give
Right.
yourself permission to pause and become more intimately aware of what's happening in your inner world, that could be a revolutionary thing to do in a family that never stops, in a
Mhm.
community that never stops. So that
Right.
in itself is I want to call that success before
Mhm.
we even get to the next steps that move us from survival mode into thriving mode. You
Mhm.
know, I feel that again, the village is a part of the process, because if one has been disconnected from all the information that's happening inside of us, to be in this pause mode, especially an unplanned one imposed by the pandemic, that could be rattling to
Right.
someone that's not used to that kind of quiet, that kind of
Right.
listening, you know. And so
Ah.
you need support, so
Right.
so that you can handle the rattling accompanied,
And when you say rattling, do you mean like the rattling of it? Like it brought up all the things in our life that were out of integrity with our soul, out of alignment. And normally, when we're not in a pandemic, you
yes,
could go to a restaurant, you go to a movie, go to a club and forget about it and
yes,
numb it.
and
But
ignore
all
it.
of a sudden,
Mhm.
it's in the face. And I have
Yes.
like quite a few friends whose kids had attempted suicide. 3 people I know attempted
Mm.
suicide in their like 20s and 30s and even younger. And it was like it was too much for them, that rattling. You know what I mean? They weren't
Yes,
successful, thank God, and are in therapy, and are on this path of healing.
definitely.
But
Hmm.
like, let's not wait to have a pandemic to deal with our inner wounds because we all have them. The inner work is also dealing with those inner wounds, and they're there. Whether we acknowledge them or not, they're there. How can we
Yeah,
courageously go in? I guess we need a professional like you,
they're
right?
there. They're there. The wounds. It just means we're human. You know,
Right.
and these wounds are
I
inviting us
forget that
into
sometimes.
healing. And yes, they right again. Humanness. We come in and out of forgetting or
Mhm.
remembering. I don't know,
Right.
but
Right.
yes, professionals like myself can be an asset to the process. And because I'm a therapist, I am biased in favor of therapy. At the same time, I realize that this is not the only form of support that exists. There's so many forms of support, and there are many people who have been unconsciously doing healing things, because we didn't just inherit pain, we also inherit wisdom, healing
Mhm.
wisdom, and don't even know it. And we practice it, like when we're dancing, for example, or humming certain songs that are taking us back to happier times. I mean, there's so many ways of healing, and why not allow ourselves to discover several? That's part of creating a supportive village.
Right.
you know for many people, I was talking about how, okay, it's important to pause so that we can reconnect, and that could stir up some things. So let's have a support so that the support is there when stuff comes up. Well, what if the circle that we live in happens to be a toxic one?
Ooh, true.
You know? So then maybe the situation is inviting us to create a new circle, a healing one.
Right.
You know, maybe this situation is inviting us to look to books, to look to mentors that we had not considered before,
Right.
to start shifting the mindset, and become, to use your words, aligned.
Yeah.
aligned, and what a journey it is.
But I love how you said that about the mindset of we inherited, these in the collective conscious, these limiting beliefs that maybe our ancestors had about working hard and not smart, whatever. But we
Mm-hmm,
also inherited the healing wisdom, the
mm-hmm,
natural remedies that we know.
mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't have time to have like breakfast, but my healing wisdom is like, well, have some greens. It's like celery and granny apple. Have a nice little healthy
Right?
snack to alkaline your body. My healing wisdom
Mm-hmm,
told me that. I would have
mm-hmm.
wanted to have some Doritos. But my healing wisdom is like, you need some
No.
celeries and some apples. I call it my higher self, my lower self. You know what I mean? But it's like we have that
Mm-hmm.
capacity. And I
Yes.
didn't know that until the pandemic to heal ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That we don't
As
have to
I'm
live a traumatized life just because of what happened in our
exactly,
past or to our families
exactly.
or to our collective community, like we
Mm-hmm.
said we saw here, you know?
Mm-hmm. As I heard you mention that, I thought of a couple of friends who are also clinicians, and they shared with me something that I thought, wow, this is such an interesting thing to reflect on. They do a lot of work supporting people and learning about their family dynamics by looking at, generational patterns. And they brought up a topic that I think is key, particularly now that we're in this pandemic. So, our ancestors experienced the pandemic of 100 years ago. And what they suggested is that a lot of the ways that we have used in this current pandemic to cope and even to go beyond coping, healing, are things that our ancestors developed in that pandemic. So we have more tools than we realize while we move through the current pandemic. So, this has been quite a season of discovery for many of us. What are the resilient tools that we also inherited from the last pandemic?
Yeah.
You know, Interesting.
It's very interesting. You know what I was called to do? Not only, well, I moved back to the beach during the pandemic, which logically didn't make sense, but I
Mhm.
realized if I wasn't close to nature and I was by myself, I was going to go crazy. And
See?
I started doing, because my internal self told me this, grounding, walking barefoot on the sand. My
Mm-hmm.
ancestors guided me that that was going to ground me and give me the clarity to be able to
There it
serve,
is. There it
right?
is. There
Right?
it is.
And then I
Beautiful.
looked it up and it's like an ancient native, I have native in my blood. I was, oh, Native Americans never wore shoes. They were always barefoot because that's how
Mm-hmm.
they could connect to the natural circadian rhythms
Yeah.
of the earth to reduce cortisol in the body to increase focus and creativity. I'm like, oh my God.
Right? Beautiful example. So many of these words that we hear frequently, such as grounding, it's important that we remember that these things have been around for centuries.
Right.
You know, People talk about mindfulness. There are so many versions of that are culturally informed, but there are different, buzzwords these days, for
Right.
things that have been going on for centuries in a number of communities.
Right. Yeah, and to adopt them as part of a regular, my mentor,
Hmm.
Dr. Michael Beckwith would say, our discipline, right?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
as our alignment discipline. So
Hmm.
so every day, like I try to barefoot walk 20 minutes or something so I can ground. And I was
Ground.
doing, and I didn't know during the pandemic, all
Hmm.
the gyms were closed. How am I going to work out? But I was doing beach yoga, which was also barefoot on the sand,
Hmm.
paddleboarding, barefoot on the
Barefoot.
water, right? All
Hmm.
of these things to get out of my head and into my body. What are the tools that you use to align for success and that you coach your patients or clients
Mhm.
to use?
Well, for me, it's really important to, over the course of the day, to have moments of pausing,
Mm,
just to be in the moment more consciously, just pausing. That's very helpful to me. And my intention is not to judge what's happening, just notice. Just
right.
notice. Another thing that's helpful, and that when I'm in conversation with, either clients or even other people in my life, writing.
So
And
good.
yes, writing can be so helpful. For many people that call that journaling, they've discovered that journaling doesn't have to always be this narrative thing. It could be a list. It could be a
Oh,
it could be a single word that
a let
captures the
go
moment,
list.
right? Yes. It could be a single word that captures the moment, or a quote that comes to mind. I'm obsessed with music. Songs come to mind at different points, but I invite someone that I'm supporting. I invite them to discover what it is that can be energy tension releasing uh, several times in the course of the day. Uh, breathing exercises. The good thing about them is that they can happen anywhere, right?
Right.
Not everything that we do to click refresh has to happen by uh, um, being alone. We could be in a class
Right.
and engaging in a breathing exercise, for example. You
Right.
know, and these are things that can be so helpful to just become more accustomed to checking in with ourselves, checking in, because again, in the burnout dance, so much of it is disconnection. So checking in becomes a practice, a
And
life
what should we
practice.
ask ourselves when we check in? What question should we ask?
Well, you know, our emotions are information.
Mhm.
Our feelings are information. And so it's a process of developing curiosity rather than
Right.
how dare you how dare you feel the presence of anxiety, or
Right.
how dare you feel the presence of anger. Let's notice it. What's the information? What's the information that these feelings are bringing to this moment?
Mhm.
So in this checking in practice, we're also strengthening the curiosity muscle.
Right.
Yeah,
And
curiosity.
curiosity is a much different energy than judgment. Judgment is like, why are you
Yes.
anxious? Why are you like this?
Uh,
Why are you angry?
mhm,
Instead of what is this
mhm.
anger letting me know that I need more of, right?
Yes, 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 yes,
I love that. I
yes.
interviewed
Because
another
when you
guest
think
who's
about,
who's who's a trauma expert, and she developed an app, and she says all anxiety
mm,
comes from unexpressed need of your emotion. So she has this app that helps you label what emotion is coming through, anger, frustration, and
mhm,
then what do you
mhm,
need? And then there's also
need.
like a gift or a lesson. So I love that.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think that when you look at narratives, cultural narratives that influence the survival mode,
Right.
uh, you know, there can be a judgy kind of energy in the how dare you rest? Resting is not an option.
Right.
But in this checking in practice, that's also strengthening our curiosity muscle. we're inviting a new energy into our relationship with ourselves.
Mm.
And this can set the tone for more curious questions, such as, what if I worked in a different environment? What if, a list of what ifs. It invites now the playful thinking,
Right.
the imaginative thinking, all of which we need for healing. We need
Exactly.
we need our imagination. We need more playfulness in order to heal.
Because it's the
Um,
right side of the brain, right? It shifts the
right,
side, the fight or flight into creative solutions, right?
right. And when we are frozen in pain, we're disconnected from the playfulness, the imaginative energy that allows us to see an alternative scenario, you know,
Right.
that allows us to see, well, what would I like to welcome into my life? Not chase, welcome.
Right. Amen, sister.
What?
I love that you
Yes,
said welcome, not chase. Yeah.
yes, yes. That's a different energy.
Yeah,
Chasing
because
is
it's the feminine
asking.
energy of allowing, accepting, and receiving. Chasing is a
Mhm,
masculine energy of pushing and hunting and forcing. I love
mhm,
that energy of
mhm.
welcoming. Wouldn't it be nice to
Welcome.
have a work environment that I love? Wouldn't it be nice to have relationships that fill me up? Wouldn't it be
Yes,
nice to have a healthy body
yes,
that is vital and strong? Wouldn't it be nice
yes.
to have? And you could just keep
Mm-hmm.
going, right?
Yeah, and then a good what if to include here, in that process of becoming more into the what ifs, is like, okay, what if my ability to listen connected with uh, so and so's ability to blah blah blah, and we brought these things together? What could happen? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, well, you know what I mean, because you're always talking about synergy,
Hmm.
you know. So, in this what if process, we become more interested in, okay, what do I bring to the table in order to welcome the experience that I would thrive in, that I could serve in, that I could be aligned in, and what are resources that I need to bring to the table combined to the ones that I already put on the table.
Right.
What's the soup that we're going to make here that's just going
Uh-huh.
to feel good, that's going to translate into, this is this is delicious, my life is delicious, not crispy anymore, not
And
burnt.
don't you have a program, like an online program to help people get from burnout to delicious life?
Yes, and it's so interesting because I think one book is the cousin of the other. because because one of them is From Burnout to Bliss, and the other is Living Deliciously. They
Oh,
mirror
they're
each other.
books. They're books.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and the idea being that, how do we reconnect with our spark? That's what I've named the workshop version of it, reconnecting with our spark, and it's essentially about reconnecting with a sense of alignment, a sense of connection, a sense of yes, and
Yeah.
examining uh, what's become a barrier to it,
Right.
not with the intention of judging, noticing, and then, okay, let's go about transforming.
Hmm.
Let's go about transforming, not merely changing. Let's go about transforming this life experience,
Right.
and just, you know find the yes, find the yes.
And that is just it for people that are feeling despondent or
Mm-hmm,
hopeless, it gives
mm-hmm.
you hope. to
Yes.
find the yes.
Yes.
They say the quality of your questions or the quality of your life. So instead of saying, why me and why did this pandemic mess with my income or
Mm-hmm.
mess with
Mm-hmm.
my livelihood or mess with my health,
Right.
it's what is the possibility now? And then you could go into that expansive place of hope, right?
Right. Right. Thank you for bringing this up, Deborah, as it relates specifically to the pandemic, because here's something that came up frequently in conversations with my students or even in therapy. The idea of, okay, how do I make the most of what is in this pandemic? Yes, I can do A, B, C, D in person,
Right.
you know. So, how can this particular situation support me in creating the conditions for the life experiences I want to welcome? What do I have access to right now? What do I actually control right now because I am home? You know, so, and not to dismiss the sense of loss uh, that many of us have experienced in this pandemic. Loss of the ability to do certain things in quarantine. These things, as well as loss of loved ones.
Right.
So, not dismissing the experience of loss, uh, also noticing, well, what are gains? What are opportunities in this situation? You know, um, so that on the other side of the pandemic, I may arrive having done certain things that support my vision.
Right.
You know, um, for some people, their vision transformed during the pandemic. Like,
Right.
wait a minute, how come I didn't start this business before?
Right. Reprioritizing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Many people are resigning from jobs.
Yeah.
I read an
Because they were
article.
out of alignment with their soul. And when they slowed down, they
Yep.
realized that.
I read an article that talked about how, other than a recession, there's a lot of resigning happening.
Right.
Yeah. New pages,
Right.
new pages. So, my hope, Deborah, is that I can support someone in reconnecting with themselves and freedom,
Mm.
their freedom to live joyfully.
I love that.
You
I
know,
love that. Yeah.
that's my
I love it. I love how you're so intentional. Like even reading your bio, you're like, my prayer is that I'm in the right place at the right time to serve you. And I just hope that
yes,
everyone that's listening, there's no accident that you're seeing Melissa right now. There's no accident that you're hearing this conversation that we're calling a podcast. It's because you may be ready to go to that next stage of evolution in your healing, whether it's with Dr. Melissa or whether it's with somebody else, right? You want to follow through because we don't have to live a life of um of just surviving, like you said.
right,
We can
right.
thrive, and we all have that
Yes,
ability to do so. So how can they
yes.
stay in touch with you? What is the best way to reach you, to get do you do online therapy too?
I am right now.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. In
Awesome.
the spirit of adapting to the current situation,
Yeah.
I definitely am doing it virtually now.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So I can be reached at melissamshepherd.com, and my social media handle for Instagram is Melissa Shepherd Wiliams. So terribly consistent. And on Facebook, there are several pages. There is From Burnout to Bliss. And because I wrote the book in Spanish as well, Jornada del
Muy
Desgaste
bien.
a la
Jornada.
Felicidad. Jornada del Desgaste a la felicidad.
Oh, muy bien.
And another one called Living Deliciously Through Community Building.
Nice. I love it. And definitely follow her on Instagram, Melissa Shepherd Williams, and I'm sure you could find all her Facebook pages from there.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to thank you so much. I mean, I could talk to you forever. I just think it's
Me
so
too. I can talk to
important
you
to
forever.
have this conversation about healing because, like you said, it's a process and it's a journey, and
It is.
we're not yet officially on the other side. But if
No.
we think about what are all the lessons we learned, like I learned to be still. I learned to be happy being alone. I learned to entertain myself with nothing, like just the beach is like my
Yes.
full full entertainment. We did movies on the beach, yoga on the beach, dancing on the beach, like anything you could do. EIOTB, everything is better on the beach, right? So it's like these cope we made that up. Um,
Yes.
we have coping skills, and what you called it is resiliency. We as
Mm,
humans, we have wounds, we have collective, traumas, but we also have collective wisdom. That's what I got from you. And when
yeah.
we pause, listen to our emotions that are informing us, we can make better choices and decisions by asking quality questions. What if? What if? So I learned so much,
Yeah.
girl. I took so many notes.
Yeah. I'm learning. I'm learning. And, it brings me so much joy to share what I'm learning. And it's so important, I think, for our growth, not only individually, but as a community. And I thank you, Deborah, for all that you're doing to invite the community into reflection. I
Yes.
almost forgot to mention that that's one of the things that happened during the pandemic. I had not planned on creating a podcast, but I, you know, when you stay open and are
Yeah.
willing to take risks, that was my way of feeling like I was part of this activism
Right.
that was really galvanized by the social injustices that we witness in this pandemic and that were not new. They've been going on, yet were more visible. So then I started a podcast named Transforming the World Through Reflections, and I also do it in Spanish, Transformando al Mundo con Reflexiones. And this was born in the pandemic, you
Amazing.
know. So
And we can watch
let's
it on your
listen.
Facebook, right? Your
Yes, yes. And it's also on Spotify and Apple.
Oh,
And
really? Oh. Say it again,
yes,
transforming.
Transforming the World Through Reflections.
Okay.
And in Spanish, Transformando el Mundo con Reflexiones.
Okay. So make sure when you go to Spotify or whatever that you follow so that you'll get notified when she updates new episodes. Okay?
Yes,
I'm doing it.
yes.
Awesome.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
thanks And thank you all. You can get so much wisdom and knowledge just from a podcast. Make sure you subscribe to your podcast, listen to it, tune in. I hope to be on it soon. We can synergize some more.
Yes,
And
yes,
this and please, by the way, comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching this, I want to hear from you. Ask questions to Melissa. We'll follow up with those, right? We want to create information that benefits you. So make sure that you're commenting. We love to hear from you. And I just really appreciate it. Then those days where I'm like, why am I doing this podcast? Is anybody listening? Is anybody out there? And then I'll see your comment. I'll be like, yes, it is for a purpose. It is to really help you to align for success, to help you know that you're not alone, whatever you're going through, and that when you
mhm,
are walking the talk by doing the inner work, your life is going to be full, which to me, what success really is inner peace,
yeah,
freedom, joy.
yeah.
And that's what Melissa's about too. So I'm so grateful she could be with us. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you share this out. Sharing is caring. We want to get it out to everyone. And remember, my friends, with the power of synergy, anything is possible. Ciao.